Hi, I'm Kate Morgan. Some of you may know me as a disgraced ex-hot teacher on TikTok. Well, due to Georgia's heartbeat law being passed, I wrote an open letter to Brian Kemp. Let's read it. Dear Brian Kemp, you've walked by me and didn't even know. Last year, when my father's name was engraved on the Georgia Public Safety Memorial, you shook my mom's hand, handed her a plaque, and thanked her for my father's service. Before his death, my father served in the U.S. Air Force as a military police officer. After that, he served in the North Carolina State Highway Patrol and served in the Secret Service before his death. In fact, he formed the 4th Electronic Crimes Task Force in this country. If you need proof, just look at a picture of him and a picture of me. A DNA test wouldn't even be needed. We look nearly identical. He did not serve his country so that his only daughter would be denied the right to her bodily autonomy as a woman. While I hope that I will never need an abortion, a pregnancy would likely be a death sentence. There are two things that most politicians don't know about me. However, we all know that you probably wouldn't care anyway. Women like me don't fit your narrative. First and foremost, I was raped at the age of 19. I did not report it and regret it every day for the past 12 years. However, at 31, I know that a police officer would have done little, if anything, to investigate. First, the man who raped me was quote-unquote too good looking. Secondly, someone forcing themselves on me is still seen as consent since I was behind closed doors on his property. Let's not forget the photos I was forced to pose for afterward. I tried to fight back, but he had military training and was bigger and stronger than me. Do you really think that it mattered? How do I know that the police wouldn't have done anything? I was stalked by another student at my former university a year later, and despite receiving death threats, the police were there, told me that we needed to quote-unquote work it out like adults. For the record, this man was 6'8" and well over 300 pounds. At 5'8" and at the time 170 pounds, I would have been no match for him. As an only child, I was my father's pride and joy. However, it was a well-known fact that Duchenne's muscular dystrophy runs on my dad's side of the family. In fact, 2 of his brothers died from it. For those who don't know, there is a 50% chance that I will pass it on. Forcing a woman to give birth is barbaric enough. Forcing a woman to watch her child die is cruel, and you are a sick, depraved person if you think that this is acceptable. On top of that, what help would you personally give me? Probably none. This doesn't take into the account that I would be unable to work, take care of my mother, and take care of an unwanted child. All of my dreams would die. Honestly, I would rather be dead than pregnant. I would probably be better off. Under your laws, I would not only be forced to carry a child with Duchenne's muscular dystrophy or a daughter who could carry the genes, I would be forced to watch that child slowly die over the course of around 20 years. In fact, my dad's brothers were dead before they were even my age. And even told my grandmother that I wouldn't be having kids before she died. Despite being a staunchly pro-life Catholic, she supported that decision 100%. Why? Unlike you, she had to raise 2 kids who she knew would die a slow, painful death. She knew that they were never going to be able to work, get married, have children of their own, or do what they love. My father was the only perfectly healthy son that she had. To make matters worse, my mom is permanently disabled from her pregnancy. While not to her liking, I attempt to help her around the house. I make sure that we have food in the house, it's somewhat clean, and that affairs are in order. If I became pregnant, there is a high likelihood that my pregnancy would be high risk, and that would be my fate. Are you that brainwashed that you feel that I should suffer permanent consequences from potential pregnancy, especially a pregnancy that I would not want, or are you just that stupid? If I get pregnant, you might as well just shoot me. I would be better off dead. On top of that, I have never wanted children. Despite the fact that I loved them and used to work with them, I always knew that having my own children just wasn't meant for me. I have prayed about it more than you, and that is the answer that I get. Contrary to popular belief, you are not God, and I will not bow to you. No woman should be forced into motherhood, and no one should be penalized for helping a woman get the proper medical care that they need. I'm a practicing Christian and Buddhist. That will guide me, not you and your bullshit laws. In all honesty, I don't feel safe in Georgia. I see laws being passed around the country about quote-unquote aiding and abetting abortion. What does that even mean? How is that defined? If I post something on TikTok that violates this law unknowingly, leave the state, and get detained, will I be facing 25 years in prison? Will I be at risk for lawsuits by fighting for women to have autonomy over their own bodies, exercising my freedom of speech, and helping women make the choice that's best for them, whether abortion, adoption, or keeping their child, all three of which are valid options and encouraged? A woman knows better than you. I also feel that my only options are to have my IUD switched out earlier than expected and to have my fallopian tubes removed in case you come up with any more bright, tyrannical ideas. Every woman that I know under 40 is terrified. I have multiple friends who have always wanted kids who have made the decision not to bring a child into this world because of these barbaric, disastrous laws. After I tie up loose ends, pay off a small amount of debt, and save up enough, I will be moving to Illinois. I have no clue how I will afford it, but what choice do I have? I don't feel safe here in Georgia anymore. If I'm not out of here by March, I am terrified that I will be incarcerated or dead. My 4 fluffballs would not have their mother. My mom would not have her daughter, her only child. My late best friend's parents wouldn't have their quote-unquote bonus daughter. I have spoken to many felons and researched for a science fiction novel, which you can read about. I'm very aware of what their realities are in prison and what their reality is like if they get out for those that will be released. It is bleak, and I should not be potentially penalized for helping someone get health care directly or indirectly. Even if this isn't a law in Georgia, there are laws across the country and they are terrifying. How is any of this okay? This is governmental tyranny at its finest. All the process, progress, and connections that I've made here will be irrelevant. I am going to have to find ways to care for my disabled mother as well. Is this the reality you want? Is this really quote-unquote pro-family? I am trying to convince her to move, but she is in denial of how bad this is. She is in denial of how my rights are being denied. She is in denial, and you are to blame. On top of this, the economy will probably tank. Honestly, I hope it does. Do you really think that any company with any sense will want to do business with someone who discriminates against half their workers? You can't honestly think that those of us who can leave won't leave. Sure, some will be stubborn and fight. However, if we can leave, we probably will. Do you think that I'm looking forward to Midwestern winters or somehow finding a way to pay off my debt and save up enough to move by March? Did I mention that I'm doing this all by myself since I have no husband, father, or men to help me? Do you think that I look forward to driving nearly 14 hours with 4 animals, including 2 cats, one of whom sedatives do not work for? I've tried giving it to him, and they do not have an effect on his body. He will cry the entire trip and be distressed because of your bullshit laws. However, I'm willing to do all of that since this means that I will be leaving your sad, sorry ass here, and I can have basic human rights again. There's nothing wrong with being personally pro-life. I know many people who are, and they're fine people. However, there is something wrong with forcing your viewpoints on others. Nothing about this law makes sense. Instead of policing us, trust women to make the right choice and do the right thing. Ironically, I'm not political. I would say I'm moderately independent. However, I do believe in basic human rights, and mine are being denied. My father would be ashamed if he knew that this country was the country that he fought for. He loves his country, but he loved me more. Keep this in mind in your bullshit quote-unquote fight for life. It's a farce and we all know it. You may have everyone fooled, but I will not be fooled. Do better. Sincerely, not voting for you.